What's up, everybody? Another professional picks video this week. In this iteration of the video, we're talking our favorite bets in week 3. You can look at our other videos that we post this week. We got our survivor picks out. We got our weekly preview where we talk on about every game. But in this video, we're going to be talking about just our favorite ones that we're actually putting our own money on. As always, like the video if you're enjoying the content. Comment, let us know who you're betting on and taking this week, and subscribe so you don't miss a single beat of what we're putting out there in terms of NFL content. So the first game we're talking about is honestly might be my favorite matchup this week. I'm really excited to watch this one with the Falcons taking on the Lions in Detroit. Falcons with a nice comeback win against the Packers at home. Lions with a letdown loss in overtime against the Seahawks. What are you thinking about this game? Just in general, and then in terms of what we like for this bet.
Yeah, I'm super excited to watch this game. As you mentioned, there's two very up and coming teams in the NFL. Both teams have a shot to make the playoffs for the first time in a little while this season. So exciting game. Two offenses who have a lot of firepower. They definitely play differently though. Got a very pass heavy offense where the other one's rush heavy. I know we talked about this the other night, but I'm super looking forward to this game. I think on the injury report, uh, the one thing to note here is Jeff Okudah is going to be questionable, but the rest of the Falcons are very healthy. They haven't had many injuries through the first two. And on the other end, the Lions are super banged up. CJ Gardner Johnson just hit the IR today.
It's a big
Houston
loss.
hit the IR. Taylor Decker, David Montgomery, all questionable. So the Lions banged up pretty early here, have improved their depth, but at the same time, you can't just take key losses on every front, offensive and defensively. They're still number 2 in total offense. That's why I love to watch the Lions play.
Or
Super
not to.
pass heavy.
Yeah.
With Montgomery still probably out, I think they're going to pass a ton. Just keep that. Like nothing's going to change there. They haven't shown that they want to run through the tackles with Gibbs at all. Maybe got like 6 carries for 12 yards last game, something like that. I'm excited to see just a ton of passing from the Lions here. And then on the other end, the Lions secondary is banged up. It's going to open up enough big plays for this Atlanta Falcons offense. Maybe see a big one from Bijan or Kyle Pitts get going. He hasn't really done too much since his hot rookie start. But I'm expecting a lot of points in this one. What are your thoughts, Edwidge?
Yeah, no, I think those were all great points. I'm wondering if we're going to see the Jeff Okudah revenge game. I think he was drafted 3rd overall by the Lions a couple of years back. Didn't he had some injuries? He struggled with the Lions, traded him to the Falcons. We'll see if he puts his stamp on this game, which I think would be really fun. Just as a football fan, I think he made a lot of great points. I'm sure we're going to see a big game out of Bijan Robinson, if not Tyler Algier, the Falcons, because no matter what, the identity of this Falcons team is a run first, even run second football team. They're the only team in the league last year that ran the ball more than they passed it. I'm sure that's going to remain this year. Lions, like you said, in the opposite hand, you said it perfectly. They're a pass-heavy team without David Montgomery. They don't really want to run the ball between the tackles with the Jahmyr Gibbs, who is just such a fun and exciting back, but you really want to get that guy in space. He's not a huge guy that you want to be, plowing through between the tackles. So I can understand that, which likely leads for them to pass the ball a lot in this game. So I'm excited to watch this one. I think these two teams play extremely different styles of football, but the one constant between these two is that you got some really, really solid offensive lines between these two teams. The Falcons, there's a reason they can put anyone in there at running back and succeed. And the Lions of their O-line, they've really beefed it up, especially in the draft recently with Penei Sewell, a left tackle, Frank Ragnow at center, and some other great guys rounding out the crew that just aren't as notable, but a great squad nonetheless. So I think this is going to be a great game, as we keep alluding to. And because of that, I think we have to take the Falcons that are plus 3.5 there. I could see them winning this game outright. But all you got to do here is just cover a field goal in a close game. Control the ball with a run if need be, if you get a lead, which they're very good at. then that +3 looks really good. In addition, you could see that they can come from behind like they did against the Packers, who have a much better defense than the Lions, and still put up points. It's not where they want to be playing from behind and throwing the ball over the field, but they have enough red zone targets in Pitts and London where they're going to put up points once Bijan and Algier get them there, because it seems like no one else on this team really is moving the ball before they get in the red zone.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you make a lot of great points there, but also just to add on to this, the Lions they were down to the Chiefs week one, pulled out a close 1 point victory, went to OT last week. They've been kind of playing to their opponent's level, and I feel like we
Mm-hmm.
really saw that last year too. Even when they were 1-7, they were still competitive 1-7, and then we saw that on the flip side when they started winning. So I mean, I attribute that to their great offense and bad defense. They're going to put up points, but they're going to keep the other team in the game. So with all the injuries as well, I think the Falcons are a smart play here.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That is a trademark of the Lions and a lot of the teams in the NFC North, quite honestly, is that they play to their competition. You see it with the Vikings all the time when they just lost 2 games against, very winnable games. But the Bears do it all the time. The Lions do it too, where they're gonna succumb to the level of their opponent or rise to it. In this case, I think they might succumb. In my opinion, I think the Falcons might be a better football team. The way I design football teams in my mind, I want to be I have a really strong run game, win the battle in the trenches, and have a solid defense, and that's the Falcons. So, there's definitely a situation here where the Lions just light up the scoreboard and blow them out. That could happen, but the way this Atlanta team is built, I think they're made to stick around and hang around football games. And I think a big reason they're able to do that is because they can get such chunk plays out of their running backs for both the run game, but also in the pass game, as Bijan has been a pretty big component of that pass game, which I don't like as rooting for these Falcons to win games. I want to see these stars that they're drafting in the first round and Drake London and Kyle Pitts get the ball more, but adding another first round pick at running back helps too when you're getting him the ball. So, Lions really struggled to stop the Seahawks run game in week 2, and I don't think that's going to stop against a much stronger run game in the Falcons here. But, we're talking a lot about both teams being able to move the ball, one team through the run game and one team through the pass game. I think that lends itself well to the over as well. The Lions, again, they're going to be able to pass the ball. If they do get from behind, they're going to be in even heavier pass mode. If David Montgomery's out, or even if he's playing and banged up, they're going to be much more reluctant to run the ball, save some time on the clock, and keep pushing that ball downfield, getting it to guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, rookie tight end, and Reynolds is looking pretty good at wide receiver too. It's a nice second option there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm with you on the over and on even the Falcons +3.5 here. I think there's gonna be so many points scored, and just to our point, the Lions continue to just play to their opponent's level. I think it's gonna be close, but I could see this one being like 27, 24, probably
Yeah.
probably more than that. But I mean, that's right where
Yeah,
we
it's
got.
funny because that's well over this over, and that's this incredibly realistic score, if not more points than that. As you saw, the Falcons put up that many in against the Packers defense that is much more capable. And going back to this idea of the Lions playing down to their opponent, like that's like it's not necessarily a personnel or a talent thing. It's more of a discipline thing, and I think that's understandable knowing their head coach is Dan Campbell. He's not as much of an X's and O's guys as some other coaches, or like a strict discipline head coach like a Bill Belichick. This is a guy with a ton of emotion that is going to get his players to run through a brick wall and play their heart out. But he's not necessarily the guy that's going to cut down on penalties and cut down on the mental mistakes. That is such a big part of football, and that's what allows teams like the Falcons and other teams that are built on runs and coming and just playing hard nosed football, allowing them to sneak back in the game towards the end, which the Falcons did against the Packers in week 2. So a lot of ideas going around there, but I think we make a lot of great points for both this spread. I think the money line is even a great value play for the Falcons here. It's just tough that they're on the road, but this over seems to be a pretty good look too. Anything else you want to add before we move on?
No, we covered pretty much all of it. I'm just expecting a ton of points, closer game, but a lot of explosive plays in the
Yeah.
Vikings. I mean, the Lions are just so banged up. I mean, just across the entire board. I could see him going on a little bit of a skid here.
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully they still able to put up points while doing so. Next game we're talking about Saints that are 2-0. Might pick to win that AFC or that NFC South division, although that was it before the season. Now the Falcons are giving me a little bit of a scare. And then we got the Packers here at home as 2-point favorites. Pretty close to a coin flip game here. Over under 43.5, so a little bit less scoring than you'd see in a typical game. What do you think about this one in a tight matchup at Lambeau?
I mean, in this one, I feel almost a little too confident with this pick, and I'm loving the Packers in this one at home off a
Mm-hmm.
very close loss that they dropped against the Falcons this last week.
Yeah.
They had the game and they just blew it at the very end there. Um, but yeah, Packers bounce back week. Saints kind of riding high off of their Monday night win, but I've watched a good amount of these Saints games through the first two, and I'm just not impressed at all. Even though they are 2-0,
Mm-hmm.
just the game against the Titans was gross. I mean, the offense couldn't move, and then again last night they could barely do anything against the Panthers. The defense has just been really keeping the Saints in the game. Derek Carr's missing wide open wide receivers. This one's more of a field play just for me watching the Saints quite a bit, and I don't trust Derek Carr at all. My take is that I'm going to guess Jameis Winston's going to end up starting at some point this season. I
Interesting.
know it's hot take. They're 2-0, but Derek Carr has not impressed me whatsoever. And on the flip side, Jordan Love has looked great in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I don't want to be like it's hard to be I'll give him a fair grade two games into the season, but I mean for somebody who everybody's talking about make or break year, that's really quieted it down quickly. And you potentially have Christian Watson coming back playing his first regular season game.
You hope
He's
so.
wide receiver one, so I mean they've looked pretty good, and you can maybe bring back a big weapon this week. I like the Packers a lot here in this one.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. The Saints are 2-0, but in my opinion, it's a pretty weak 2-0. They really struggled to beat the Titans after I saw Ryan Tannehill give them every chance to win the game. Three turnovers and picks from Tannehill there. And then against the Panthers, who also had their fair share of turnovers, these guys have a combined win margin of 4 points in their two wins. So they're not winning in convincing fashion. They're not taking advantage of all the turnovers that have been given to them. So these two wins haven't been all that eye-opening and flashy, in my opinion. For the Packers here, you can say the same thing. Week one, they had a joke of an opponent in the Bears. They tore them to shreds. They had a pretty good, fair matchup with the Falcons. So I think, especially based on the spread, pretty comparable team in terms of skill level. That they competed and they let it go in the end. And the reason being, I think, is because the run defense for the Packers is the weak spot of this team. Now, both defenses, Saints and Packers, are very good, and honestly, the under would probably be a play here too. But both teams are really good. Where their weakness lies with the Packers defense, like I said, is that run game. That is a relative advantage playing against the Saints, who are already thinner at running back with Jamal Williams out, Alvin Kamara suspended. So they're weak in the run game. Passing the ball, the Saints have good weapons, but like I said in the other video, Jair Alexander, one of the best cornerbacks in the game, and Pro Football Focus's highest rated cornerback, has been for a season and a half now. Like, he's a huge guy at cornerback, and then Rasul Douglas on the other side of cornerback is arguably one of the most underrated cornerbacks in the league. So having those guys to neutralize the passing game with an already questionable looking Derek Carr, I like the Packers' chances there. But it's going to be a close game, and the spread's pretty accurate. Like, I think the Packers probably win this one by 3. Going to be a low scoring, tight game. But I like the way Jordan Love looks. I think the Packers don't commit 2+ turnovers, win the turnover margin, and they're probably going to win the game, because in every game so far this season, the Saints have been dominating the turnover margin. That if once that script gets flipped, then they're probably going to struggle, because the eyeball test, they have not passed it, like you mentioned.
Yeah, no, I mean you hit pretty much all the points that I had left. Packers top 10 in pass coverage, and then you mentioned out with Jamal Williams. Kamara is still suspended. Um, Kendrick Miller's hurt too. I don't even know who's going to
I mean,
be
Taysom
cleared.
Hill game, dude. But
Yeah. So
sometimes it really pays off for them.
so yeah, I mean they're gonna have to pass a lot, and then also to add on to that, Michael Thomas still very good, but he completely went quiet in the second half. 7 catches for 55 yards, didn't even catch a ball in the second. He's not what he was like 3 4 years ago. So
But
you're gonna
he's transitioning into that number two now because he's in the transition to the number two because Olave will soon be the number one if you isn't already, and that's a great like you would love to have Michael Thomas be your second best receiver.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. But I'm saying Jair
Certainly
Alexander,
not.
put him on Olave. Michael Thomas still very good receiver, but I don't think he's enough to completely carry this team like he used to.
No, agreed. He doesn't have that top speed either to take the top off the defense. So he's really only running in routes. It really diminishes his effectiveness, like you're talking about. That's probably the halftime adjustment that the Panthers made and said, "Hey, dude, this guy's just going to run in. Take that away, and we'll see what he can do." So I agree. Yeah, I totally agree. He's not the player he used to be. Still a very good option, but you can see that there's clear adjustments to make against him, like the Panthers made. So Jordan Love again, ball safety, ball security here. I think that'll win the game. It is going to be interesting. You talk about David Bakhtiari being banged up, one of the best left tackles in the game, best lineman in the game. That matters. Both these teams have great pass rushes this season, both top 10 in the league. So we'll see how that comes into play too. It really is going to come down to turnovers, and I think it's not even I like Jordan Love to not commit a turnover. I love Derek Carr to commit a turnover based on the way I saw him play. That pick that he threw against the Panthers on Monday night, he
Are you
took
talking
two
about the
steps.
first half?
Yeah, he just took 2 steps
Their
off his
defense
back
got him the
foot.
ball right back too.
Yeah, and the game,
That's insane. Like so, he's just been getting bailed out left and right.
yeah,
That was
he has been getting
true
bailed
to
out.
no one.
And he's got to the Saints credit, they have a great defense with defense. Their former D coordinator under Sean Payton, Dennis Allen is the head coach now, so it's no surprise to me that it's such a great unit. But they've been Derek Carr and that offense have been getting bailed out. The second that stops happening, that's when they get the one in the loss column. And I think we both agree that it's this week.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
Moving on to the next one. I lied. I said that the Falcons game might be my most favorite to watch this week. It's got to be this one. You got a huge total here. Both these teams backs against the wall at 0-2. You go 0-3, you're not making the playoffs. Not that I'm not really sure either of these teams are anyways, but it's kind of like the biggest slap in the face when that happens. So these teams both started 0-2, I think, despite many expectations for these guys. The Vikings are at home and still underdogs, which means, consensus is the Chargers are the better team. What do we think here as this is looking to be a game with a ton of points and maybe not a ton of defense?
Yeah, I mean the total there just says the whole story in this one. Two extremely pass heavy offenses. I think Eckler going down is going to hurt the Chargers a lot more than people talk about. I don't think Josh McKelly is going to be able to hold up that backfield whatsoever.
No.
Um, but yeah, I I know we're leaning the same way on this one, but just to kind of look into the matchup a little bit, Herbert's played well, but they're still 0-2. Hasn't had a turnover yet on the season. And then on the flip side, Kirk, couple bad turnovers in the first week, but he's looked great. He's eighth, I think, in quarterback rating right now, and just getting that extra weapon in Jordan Addison, I think, has just completely
Oh,
revitalized the offense and added that extra layer that they needed so badly. Even more so than having, obviously, Dalvin Cook was great, but just opening up that pass game, opening up Justin Jefferson. I like the Vikings a lot. They're fun to watch, and the one really surprising thing that I found in this matchup that absolutely sealed it for me. We're looking at two great passing offenses. The Vikings right now are number 4 in pass coverage, which something's going to give. They're not going to be a top 5 pass coverage defense, but they're definitely playing better against the pass than I anticipated. And on the flip side, the Chargers are number 30th. So
yeah, and some of that too. Like I think these grades, I like putting a lot of stock into them, but these grades get better and better throughout the season as they get adjusted for their opponent. But agreed, that is extremely shocking to see that the Vikings have a top 5 coverage team right now. It's not like the Bucks have a terrible passing offense. You just saw Mike Evans torch the Bears, and obviously the Eagles can throw the ball all over the field if they want to. I do think part of it to just play devil's advocate here, I think part of the reason the Vikings coverage was so good in week two is because they refused to stop the run against the Eagles. They just totally committed to the pass.
Yeah,
But
that's good for game.
like I saw the Eagles legitimately run the same play 3 times in a row and get 6 yards every time. I loved it.
But that's
Um,
the thing. The Chargers can't. They won't.
no, look,
Stanley will refuse to.
he will refuse. He likes to find a way to lose games. Eckler could play this game, but we'll see. That's like more of a game time decision. I think even if he does, I like the Vikings here. They're getting their star left tackle back, Christian Derishard, which is obviously going to help them. I don't. The run game for the Vikings has been lackluster. A little disappointed in what they've been able to produce as an offensive front unit and Alexander Madison running between tackles. Regardless, I think that you get the little bit of an edge in the Vikings secondary, which helps. I do like Brian Flores as the defensive coordinator. That probably the most outside of Dan Quinn in Dallas, the most overqualified coordinator in football. And like you said, you get a guy like Addison to be your number two against a guy like Justin Jefferson. You're going to see a ton of points here. I love the way that the Vikings looked against the Eagles in that second half, and I texted you right after it said we're betting the Vikings in week 2 or week 3 because they look solid. They fought, and in the second half, I think they look pretty good, especially on offense of the ball. Justin Jefferson and Addison. And they really, what really was awesome was getting TJ Hawkinson involved in that. 2 touchdowns for him against the Eagles. I think having the real wide margin in terms of tight end performance in this game will be a big difference too. So for a lot of, I don't think it's gonna be a lot of defense and a lot of stops and a lot of punting this game, but I think you got to give the edge to the Vikings with if Eckler's out, they got the running back advantage. If no matter what, you have the wide receiver advantage on every team with Justin Jefferson and Addison, who's got 2 touchdowns and really good at making explosive plays when the defense is all eyes on JJ. Really allows the Vikings to get these quick points too. So we like the Vikings to win this one here. I'm surprised this would be a great spot for a teaser, but we like it so much I think we're just taking the +1.5.
Yeah, no, I love it. And you could really spin this any way you want, but everybody was talking about how many one-score games the Vikings pulled out last year, and why they were kind of frauds in the playoffs. But you got to give O'Connell some credit and just that he can manage the clock. I think in an even game here, you got even money line. Just give me the Vikings to just pull it out against Staley in a one-score game.
Yeah, really, even if you're throwing out all the stats and all the logic, like a home team with their back against the wall is a much better spot to be betting on, right? Your crowd is going to be into it as they always are, but that matters. It is an intangible thing that you can't quantify inherently. And I think it really is going to make a difference in this game. And that's why the Vikings are going to win this one. Taking +1.5 is the same thing as taking the money line, honestly. It just really it just covers you with a little bit of insurance for like a fluke PAT miss or something like that. Another game we're going to talk about. This game would be amazing if it was played in the late 70s. Unfortunately, we're playing in 2013, and the Steelers and Raiders both don't look all that great this season. But there's a lot of season left. Mike Tomlin's still on pace to keep his every season coach without a losing record is still intact as of right now. We'll see what he can do here as you're taking on the Raiders in Las Vegas. The line is starting to favor Oakland more and more. What are you thinking about this one?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it just now, but I'm also a little bit curious on why that line's trending in Oakland's favor. But this game's just a classic matchup of offense versus defense. You watched the Steelers play last night. Over half their points were scored on the defensive side of the ball, and then you flip it on the other side, and with the Raiders, you have arguably the best running back in the NFL, and Josh Jacobs, and arguably one of the best receivers with Devontae. So I think I think it's just going to really be which side can show up a little bit more, whether that's Vegas's defense or the Steelers' offense. I'm kind of leaning more so with the Steelers' offense in this one, just because they've had 2 tough matchups to start the season, going up against Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith. Like you mentioned last night, is no easy task on that
My
Browns
God.
front line. And then throw in Ward, Newsome. I think the Browns have a very, very good defense. And then you played the Niners week one. I think obviously we're going to be tough on this Steelers offense, but um, this Raiders defense doesn't even compare to what they've faced already this season. The Raiders did look pretty good against the Broncos, and then they came back a little bit to earth against the Bills. So I think I have decent reads on both these teams, and I just feel like that Steelers defense is going to be too dominant. J.J. Watt was an absolute animal, and I think he's going to create a nightmare for Garoppolo.
DJ Watt, that is.
What did
His
I say?
he went with his older bro JJ.
Yeah, shoot.
Anyway, no, I think you made a great point, and something I talked about in the earlier video quickly. In any matchup with offense versus defense, at least to me, I'm always going to favor it on the defensive side. Something I noticed with the Raiders in both weeks, they struggled putting up points against a Denver defense and a Buffalo defense that is not as good as the Steelers defense. That they put up was 16 points, 17 points in week one against the Broncos, and then only I'm just gonna look it up so I don't know if this sounds stupid. Um,
No, it was a grinded out game. Last week,
they only put up 10 against the Bills, and they only put up 17 against the Broncos. So they're down 27 points. They're averaging 13 and a half points a game here. Like, and they're playing a better defense now. Now, I would bet they put up more than 13 and a half points in this game, but probably not too much more. The Steelers defense is legit, even if they are going to miss Minka Fitzpatrick, who went down with an injury against the Browns. His status is questionable, and a very big part of that defense. The biggest story in the Steelers defense, without a doubt, is the ability to get to the passer and create pressure. And that's obviously what the Steelers do so well. So Raiders aren't going to put up many points this game, as we've seen the first two games. Very tough matchup against the Steelers defense. And then at the same time, the Raiders don't have a great defense themselves. We've seen the Steelers go up against two top five, at the very minimum, no argument, two top 10 defenses in the league this first two games. Yeah, you're not going to get that against the Raiders. You got to hope that this Steelers offensive line, that is one of the worst in the league, can give some hole and some opening for Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren to do a little bit better in the ground game. I'm not sure about the status of Deontay Johnson at wide receiver for the Steelers, but Kenny Pickens George Pickens, I'm sorry, and Kenny Pickett have looked solid as connection together. You got the former Bear. Give me help here. What's his name? Allen Robinson. Thank you, playing wide receiver for the Steelers too. It helps him out a little bit. Pat Freiermuth, tight end, always reliable option. It's really gonna be a grinded out game, and that's the spot you want to be taking the Steelers in, because that's what they just saw Monday night against the Browns. Mike Tomlin, I said, has not had a losing season in his career, and the way you do that is win games that you aren't supposed to and keep yourself in close games like this. I think the Steelers have enough in the tank to keep this one close and make this plus 2.5 look great, and even better when you tease it too.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on this one. We're going with the Steelers defense. Really, really the moral of this pick here. And then
Yes.
I'm gonna go with Tomlin any day over McNeil's.
Yeah, Deontay Johnson's not playing this game, but as you saw against the Browns, you don't need much for the Steelers offense to win games because your defense can do so well. Granted, you can't count on the Steelers defense to put up 14 points for you every game, but I think with the subjectivity of this Raiders defense and the questionability of their talent, then you're going to get enough out of the offense. Just squeeze enough offensive firepower out of these guys and let your defense keep you in this game. I think the last game we're going to talk about here is a divisional matchup with the Patriots and the Jets here. This one, talked about a couple games I cannot wait to watch. This is going to be the worst game on the eyes this week, I'd have to say. Over-unders at 37 points. Patriots favored, which I'm not surprised about here, given just Bill Belichick's dominance over the Jets in his career. But there's no doubt about it that this Jets defense is legit, and I would love to know what you're thinking about this game.
Yeah, so I know when we talked about this one yesterday, you were all over the Pats. I've been kind of back and forth as far as just who I think is going to win this one. But I did see today that Belichick has won his last 14 matchups against the Jets now. So
Insane. How's that?
It's just absolutely nuts. But he's dominated it.
It's not.
Um, but like you mentioned, total set at 37 here, and I checked. It's going to be raining the entire game.
Heck yeah, baby. Let's go.
So yeah,
That's
I mean, no
football weather.
surprise. It opened up at 37 and a half. It's already gone down half a point since yesterday. So yeah, no surprise here. But this Patriots defense and this Jets defense and a divisional matchup, two teams that are very familiar with each other. I think it's going to be such a grinded out, low scoring game. And I think which almost leans more into it is the Patriots run game hasn't been as dominant, I want to say, as I
No,
it have been the last couple of years.
not at all.
It just yeah, something looks off. So I don't think either team's gonna be able to move the ball very well,
Yeah.
especially with
Well,
Zach Wilson.
I'll tell you why. Their offensive line is usually the staple of this team. Bill Belichick always is going to build his offensive line and then his defense. The offensive line is not up to the caliber that they've had in the past few seasons. And so, yeah, they have not been able to get the explosive run game that we're used to seeing out of them, no matter who's touching the football in that backfield. Because it doesn't matter what name on the back of the jersey is running for the Patriots uniform, they're always running behind a solid O line. And that's why you see these guys rotate out every season or two, but still produce somehow. So I agree with you that the deficit in that offensive line in that run game helps to bring this total lower here. The Jets are pretty banged up and just underperforming offensive line, especially when the pass blocking game. That's their big weakness for that O line. This Patriots defense is going to dial up some exotic blitz packages. I can guarantee it. That's how you win 14 straight games against a team. You pull some tricks out of your bag and mess with the other team. That's what's going to happen here. The only thing that is going to stop this under from hitting Sliwa is a defensive or special team score. I really love this. Like in my mind, neither team is getting under. Neither team is getting over 20 points of offense here. You just gotta fade the special teams. There's going to be turnovers on both sides, but especially on the Jet side, that's why I love the Patriots, and that's why the Patriots win so many games against the Jets. They just simply win the turnover battle. I God, I want now. I might have to add the Patriots. If I can get at -2.5, I'm gonna have to add it. Um,
Yeah,
later, but
I was back and forth, but you sold me on it now.
you just know Zach Wilson's gonna throw a pick, dude. He's gonna do the Sam Darnold see and ghost type stuff. That's what Bill Belichick does against the Jets. That's why he always wins. That's what's happening. Um, the Jets clearly have more firepower on offense with guys like Brees Hall, Dalvin Cook, and Garrett Wilson. Counteracted with the fact they're going to turn the ball over, counteracted with the fact that Bill Belichick just simply knows how to beat the Jets. You're going to see a ton of punts this game. You're going to see a huge battle for field positioning, and I would bet to say a ton of field goals in this one too, not a lot of touchdowns. So I love this under. We're just praying there's no defense and special team scores. Knock on wood.
Do you wanna? I mean, you just mentioned a lot of special teams. That's gonna lend into your Pats pick even more because Greg Zuerlein hit the injury report last week, so they picked up Austin Seibert. I mean, not a bad kicker, but you're still going up with a backup kicker
Yeah.
in a tough close matchup. So I really like your Pats pick. Might have to be a later ad.
I think it's that now that you're on it, I think we might have to check out Twitter for that pick and when we send that one out. So this always happens every week, but the more we talk about these games, the more I think our card is looking great. If you watch this video in the past, we are really solid at our locks. Hopefully not to jinx ourselves, but we've been saying it every week. Our locks hit at a pretty solid rate, certainly over 60%. So we really should go back to these videos and get an official tracker, but they hit well over 50% without a doubt. And the rest of our bets can be pretty profitable too. So we have the Falcons Lions over 46.5. That one, I think that is going to be even better if the Lions can get up points early. Make the Falcons, have maybe a different mindset instead of running the clock out in this game and pushing the ball downfield a little bit with all their talent on offense. That would really help there. Packers -2 is the lock here. Again, it really comes down to what we've seen on the eyeball test with Derek Carr and the Saints has not impressed me, at least on the offensive side of the football. The defense is legit, and I have no doubt when I say that, but I think the Packers defense is pretty solid too, and I like what the Packers have going on right now at home. Maybe just win the turnover battle, win this game here. Vikings -1 here. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, yeah, I was just gonna add on to that. I mean, the NFC North, um, it's up for grabs right now. Bears 0-2. You got the Vikings 0-2. Both the Lions, Packers 1-1. I can see the Packers just I don't know. From what I've seen from them, I really think they're gonna end up pulling this division out again, even
Right?
on a potential down year.
Yeah.
I just see it happening already. But not to cut you off.
It's a winning franchise, man. That's what they do. They got Matt LaFleur's a great head coach. He's a great X's and O's guy and an offensive guy. And that helps because they're not necessarily the most packed at talent at wide receiver and on offense. But when you've got a great schemer like Matt LaFleur, then that really helps. And that really unlocks a lot of potential in guys like Romeo Dobbs and Christian Watson. Staying with the NFC North, we got the Vikings -1 at home, and it's getting pretty close to be a must-win game. You mentioned this division is still up for grabs, but it gets a lot more bleak when you're 0-3 here. And the Vikings, with how good they played last year, they're drawing a pretty tough schedule this year. They got to win these games here that they should, and especially the home ones make it a little bit easier. I think Brandon Staley might be the first fired head coach in the league this year, especially if he loses this game. My prediction of his firing is predicated off the fact that they will lose this game. I like the Vikings -1 here. Falcons Steelers it was pretty close. It was almost our lock, Leo, but the Steelers, on the road makes it a little bit scary. This Falcons +9.5 here. I don't think I've ever liked a leg and a teaser more, besides any other Titans pick I've ever had, than this Falcons. This Falcons +9.5 is I would be absolutely stunned if they can't cover 10 points this game. And the Steelers with their defense are going to keep them around is what we're betting on. The Raiders offense has struggled against worse defenses this season. So with the Steelers in that pass rush too, I think it's going to make this game interesting. Low scoring, but it lends well to the Steelers here.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think the Falcons might be your new Titans this year. They're
They play
run
such
heavy.
good football,
They're
dude.
clearly why you love the Titans, but they're younger.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and they're better. And I really think they have a shot at winning the division this year. I'm kind of mad that I made my preseason parlays. The Saints were the heavy pick in there. Eyeball test, man. These Falcons, it's their division. I really think so. Like the way they look a lot, and I don't know what Arthur Smith is doing, but he's doing something right. They run heavy. He's flipping the script on the NFL, and they're building with the run game. They refuse to use their talent, Kyle Pitts and Drake London, but somehow they're winning games. We'll see what happens. Final game of the card. I like this one a lot too because it's too low to not hit. You can't put a line at 36, 37 and go over by a lot. If they're saying we know that there's going to be very few points this game, it's just, is there going to be that anomaly of a defensive score here? That's all it is. We're betting against that. We'll see. Even, you know what? I can still see defensive score, and it still could hit with just this relative strength of these defenses against the opponent's offenses. Obviously, the Jets have a better defense than the Patriots, but the Patriots with Bill Belichick, and again, like you mentioned, 14 straight wins, they've got to figure it out against these guys. No matter who is lining up in the personnel, who's the head coach, Belichick's got the Jets figured out. And I think it's